study these two books and compare, and you find out that the Christians took the whole Christian Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, out of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So that if you want to go to the source, don't go to King James. Go to ancient Egypt, and you've got a Bible that's 10,000 years older than anything that these Christians have. But it was Pantius and Boetius who started when they voted from the synagogue and started an extension of what was a teaching that preceded Jesus by more than 4,000 years. Thus, when you see Jesus, you are seeing the rebirth of a person that existed 4,100 years before Jesus and Mary. If you call Mary Isis, and that's the Greek word, let us say Aset, or Aset, and you call Jesus Heru, or you want to use the Greek word Horus, and then you call Jehovah Asaru or Asad, you will speak about three personalities or deities who gave you your Jesus figure. If you would take the story of those three Africans along the Nile, add 4,000 years to your Jesus, 6,000 years ago then, you will have Christianity before Christ.
Brother William, go ahead and introduce yourself, what you want to be called for the airing of the show and so forth.
My name is William Humphrey. I go by Tehuti forever. I'm the author of Quantum Philosophy, Meanings, Answers, and Promises, and I am a Kemite.
So how long you been in the school of thought of Kemet?
I've been learning the actual Kemetic legacy for about 2.5 years. However, the calling to Kemet, I've been called to Kemet my whole life. Learning about nature, understanding what nature is telling me, and putting that into words and into a culture, that's something that I've done my whole life. Like I was mentioning, the book that I wrote here, Quantum Philosophy, Meanings, Answers, and Promises, this book is a Kemetic book. However, I wrote it in 2011, so that's over 7 years ago. But if you were to understand the principles in this book, you'll see the correlation between my writings, my understanding of spirituality in the universe, and the Kemetic books coming forth by day.
I was sent a message by a good brother who introduced me to this brother Tahuti. We agreed to talk about are the stories of the Bible stolen from Kemet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so how I'll do it is Gorilla, if you think this is fair, just kind of give him the floor and let him bring forth the first story. I guess we can go story by story, and then
yeah, that sounds like it'll work the best.
Okay, you got the floor, brother.
All right, thank you for that. So what I like to say about it is that the narratives are Kemetic, right? But the book in itself and the way it's composed is also Kemetic. So you're looking at the narratives within the book, how the book is written and what the book is talking about, and also the history of the book. All of it is Kemetic. So it's not just one aspect of it. Now, when I say all of it is Kemetic, I don't mean every single word. What I'm saying is that it derives from Kemet. Originally, the very first 5 books of the Bible was written by someone by the name of Moses, supposedly according to the narrative, right? So we're going to look at it inside of the narrative, and then we're going to look at it historically, because either way, it's going to get you to the same answer. So what I would like to say about myself, first off, is that I believe the Bible is semi-historical. I don't believe it's completely accurate in its history. I don't believe every single character in the Bible existed. However, I'm not one that's going to say no one in the Bible truly existed, because I can't wrap my mind around how a book could come out as being historical where there's not one shred of historical information in it, right? So the author of it, when he produced it, when he presented it to the people, they had to be familiar with some of the history, right, originally, or he would have had to say, well, this is a completely fictional book, because you have to link it to something in history to be able to say it has some history in it. So the way I look at it is, it has to be partly historical, right? And from my tutelage, from learning Kemet, I can see where the history is and where the rewrites are, right? So we're going to start off talking about Moses because he began the book, right? Am I correct about that? He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible.
The Bible itself does not say that Moses wrote the first 5 books. No.
Okay.
They're called the books of Moses, but there's scribes that wrote those books, and wrote essentially all the books of the Bible were written by scribes.
Okay, so you're saying Moses did not write the first 5 books?
Himself personally, no.
Okay, that's fantastic, because I don't believe Moses wrote the first 5 books either. However, traditionally we're told that Moses wrote the first 5 books. And under that line of thinking, when you look at the story of Moses, he was raised as a Kemite. He was raised through the Kemetic legacy as well as the Hebrew legacy. He was raised in the home of the Pharaoh, and he also visited his birth parents or mother and brother and sister. So he was raised, it says he was raised in both worlds. Now, that being said, when you look at his particular writings, that's where you're going to find the most parallels, the most commonality between Kemet and the Bible. You're going to find it mostly in those 5 books. The rest of the Bible, you're not going to find those type of similarities. You'll find word for word, almost like plagiarism, but you're not going to find the similar type of stories in the rest of the Bible. It's mainly the ones that people accredit Moses of writing. And what I generally explain is that, well, if he was raised Kemetic, he learned the Kemetic stories. Now, I don't really get into the little minutia of the writing or the actual parallels, like we were talking about the Garden of Eden, which is similar to, like, the Garden of Eden is a place where Adam and Eve were supposed to live out eternity. They're supposed to live forever, right? In peace, in bliss, in harmony, in tune with nature. In our Kemetic legacy, we have the fields of reeds. That's where you're supposed to live out eternally, in peace and bliss. Is basically the same type of principle. Now, when I bring up these parallels, I'm not saying that it was completely copied 100%. I'm just saying this is where the story originated. This is where the concepts originate from, right? And it was rewritten to fit whichever stories or whichever ideas the writer wanted to put in them. So they're not 100% the same, but they are originally Kemetic. So I'm saying that, like, the tree of knowledge, we have a Kemetic tree of knowledge, right? When I'm talking about, let's see, you got the Garden of Eden, you got the tree of knowledge, you have the snake, and I know a lot of historical cultures, civilizations have the evil snake. We have Apophis, and it's the same exact principle, right? This evil snake that needs to be destroyed. Now, under the principle that Moses would have learned these stories, and under the concept that, okay, Moses was actually the person who wrote those 5 books, that would correlate. However, Guerrilla Hebrew is saying that he doesn't agree that Moses wrote those stories, and neither do I. We don't have a historical Moses. In history, there is no, I mean, like historical people will say like Gandhi, okay, we'll say Imhotep. Imhotep is a lot older, thousands and thousands of years older than the concept of these biblical people, but we know them as being accurate, actually being historical. But Moses, we don't have anything historical about Moses as far as him being an actual person. Now I don't know, Gorilla Hebrew, approximately what time did Moses supposedly have lived?
Well, that's something that's that's something that's up for debate. Some would say in between 1300 and 1800 BCE.
Somewhere in between 1300 and 1800, so that's a 500-year span. If we hit it in the middle, we cut the difference, that's about 1500, right? So somewhere between 13 and somewhere between 18. So you get 1500 if it's in the middle, right? Somewhere in there. So if you go into history, Moses is supposed to be a historical person in Kemet. Inside of Kemet, he's supposed to be historical. So if we go into what was happening in Kemet around that time, we do find an exodus. There was an exodus in Kemet around the same exact time that the Bible generally says Moses, the exodus happened, right? Somewhere around 1500, 1600, you find that same exact exodus of people leaving out of Egypt. Over 500,000 people living out of Egypt. I know maybe the Bible says 2 million. Historically, it was over 500,000 people leaving out of Kemet and going into the Middle East, going into the land of Canaan. This is what we have historically. Those people were called the Hyksos, right? The Hyksos were ran out of Kemet. They ruled Kemet. They were not slaves. We don't have any historical evidence of slaves being abundant, like in the Bible, like mass slavery. We do show that there were some people in bondage, some people captive of war. We do show that in Kemet, but not on a mass level, like it says, as far as the Bible is concerned. So that correlation, you don't find that in history and in the Bible. But what you do see is that there was an exodus around that same exact time frame where Moses was supposed to live, right? If we can drill that number down, if I was to look it up, most people are going to say about 1550, somewhere in the 1500s. That exact time frame, I don't know if I can share my screen at all.
You can.
You can.
Okay, so put your mouse on the screen and you're going to see in the left column like a text message icon, a green arrow icon, a video icon, an equalizer icon.
Only thing I see is a video icon.
Oh, it might not let them screen share.
I guess not.
Okay. All right. Well, if you can quote it, I guess what we can do is fact check it. If it's like a major point you're trying to make, we could pull it up possibly.
All right. Well, all the points are, what it is it's a combination of points, right? It's putting everything together and just looking at it holistically, right? Looking at the total sum of all the information that points back to the same exact place. It all points back to Kemet. So I'm only going to read off this little script here from the Hyksos, and they were ran out in 1550 BCE, which is smack in the middle of the time frame where Moses was supposed to live. And we have the person who ran them out by the name of Amos, right? Now, Amos had a brother named Kamos, and those are our two Moseses that we have in history. So the basic history is that Amos runs out the Hyksos, who were in power in Kemet. in that same exact time frame where we're talking about these people leaving out of Kemet and going into the Middle East. The story is exactly the same as history. So what I'm proclaiming is that it is based on history. We don't have the historical Exodus. We have the historical Hyksos leaving out in the hundreds of thousands into the Middle East, where they were ran off by a scribe. And this scribe did actually write the story of this Exodus, right? And his name is Amos, Ahmose. It almost has the name Moses in that, right? So that's one of the points that I bring up is
can I get that source that you're using? What source?
What I was pulling up was just the internet. I was just pulling it up on Wikipedia.
Well, the brother mentioned a few things. I know there's a lot more to go, but I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to recap so much. True. So let's just kind of ask a couple of questions of what he's already mentioned. Alizar, did you have anything of what he mentioned already? Because I had a couple of questions.
He lightly brushed over a few things in Genesis. He spoke about a garden. He spoke about an evil snake. And he spoke about Exodus. So let's first start with Genesis, right? Mm-hmm. Here's why it would be problematic for you to even point out any similarities between Genesis and anything in Kemet. Because from the biblical narrative's perspective, this is something that occurred to the ancestors of all living. So it stands to reason that if it in fact happened to the ancestors of all living people, that all living people would have some version of this history in their system. So there's that's why people always focus on that. They focus on the flood. Everybody has these stories. Nobody has a monopoly on any type of account of global floods, etc. So when somebody says that the stories of the Bible are borrowed from Kemet, there's a lot of stories in the Bible. So I would need you to produce something that happens after something that is not, from the biblical perspective, a shared collective account of something. You see what I'm saying? So going into Exodus would be good to start. But even the whole Hyksos hypotheses is something that has certainly been called into question. And scholars today more so lean to the Israelites being the Shasu and not the Hyksos. So there's another issue just there, but I would really like for you to show me what other stories that we from the Bible or that the Bible took from ancient Kemet.
Right. And again, I'm not saying that that the story is completely identical, right? So if you're saying that the Israelites were a different people, that piece of the story, okay, I can see that might have been written in that way. But the point is that in the narrative itself, inside of the narrative, we see Moses being raised Kemetic. We see Moses learning being raised up. Okay, so we see that. And then we're saying he's accredited with these writings, which me and you agree that that's incorrect, right? And then we also see that we don't have any historical Moses. Now, if you were to present a historical Moses that was not Amos at the same exact period, doing exactly the same as the story in history, if you were to present a different Moses and say, okay, he has a different Exodus at that same exact period that Amos has the Exodus of the Hyksos, then I would say, okay, well, that makes sense. But the thing is the story is exactly the same. Regardless of how some people are interpreting it, we understand that the story is still the same. We still have an Exodus. We still have the Moses or Amos. We still have people leaving Kemet going into the same region, right? Exactly at the same time. Now, you gave a broader time frame than what most people give. Most people give 1500, 1550, and you gave between, 1300 and 1800, so I had to put it down the middle. But generally, we're talking about 1550. right? So your range was a little broader. It would have been a little better if you would have dialed it down, but I understand that you don't want to be incorrect. You want to give the best information that you have. So being that you gave us this broad range, and then the very focal point, the very center of the range you gave us, we do see this Exodus. We do see Moses or Amos, right? It's exactly the same story. So you're saying you want to move on from that?
Well, I just had a few quick questions. I don't want
Go
to,
for it.
because my brother Gorilla Hebrew, he's very familiar with the whole, Kemet family, the House of Consciousness with Sadnetta, so on and so forth. What I like is I deal with the Bible, I deal with history, but I did have a question, and I want to let you know something. A lot of my beloved Kemet brothers, they don't really understand, because they're going off the narrative of Christianity. So I will say this: a lot of the stories from Christianity have been stolen from Kemet. Absolutely. Right. Christians worship the Ankh. They believe in that whole December 25th and a lot of other parallels that we see in ancient Kemet. So I will say Christianity done stole a lot of the customs, practices, and culture from Kemet and various religious civilizations as well. Right. So I wanted to know, you mentioned Adam was supposed to live eternal. Is that something in a source that you said the story of Adam represented who again in Kemet?
I didn't mention that the story of Adam represented another person in Kemet. What I stated was the Garden of Eden, and I was given the parameters or the basic understanding of the Garden of Eden. You have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Okay. And I was comparing the Garden of Eden to the fields of reeds, which is a similar concept.
Okay. And in that concept, there's beings there that were promised eternal life.
Right. There were beings. Well, there's no death when it comes to Kemet. We don't have the type of death. We have life, we have new life, we have rebirth. Everything, you sleep one day, you wake up the next, right? So it's a continuous stage and cycle of life, right? The location where you can live out eternity is called the fields of reeds. Now, that location may not be the physical plane as we call it here, but it's a field or a garden where you can live out eternity. And that's the basic premise that I was comparing it to. Okay.
Have you ever heard of anywhere in the Bible where it said Adam was predestined to live forever?
Predestined? Well, no, I don't think it was mentioned in that way. He wasn't supposed to eat of the tree of knowledge, and then God told him he would surely die, but it didn't say it in the exact phrase that you said it, because you kind of turned it around. But I do see your point. So what you're saying is that if it doesn't actually mention it directly in the Bible, then that's a presumption.
Well, I'm not saying that you can't plead your case. I'm just trying to get an idea of how much of each story did we allege still from. Like, for example, you mentioned the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Are you thinking, according to your understanding, that that's a literal tree?
Right. I'm not claiming that the story is true, right? What I'm saying is rewritten. The person who rewrote it, I'm not saying that they got the details pinpointed or that they even tried to get the details pinpointed. What I'm saying is that they learned it from Kemet, and then they transferred it, they changed it how they saw fit, right? So I'm not saying that, oh, well, Adam has to live forever for it to be a similarity. No, I'm saying that, the fields of reeds, the Garden of Eden, is basically the same concept, right? So it's more of a general type of a thing. And you see that more in the first five books of the Bible than you do in the rest of the Bible. You see things like the Ten Commandments. Now, I'm not saying the Ten Commandments are plagiarized. I'm just saying that the concept itself was rewritten. Now, I'm not saying they dialed it down 100% or got it 99%. What I'm saying is they changed it how they saw fit. I'm saying it originates, right, in Kemet. Now,
Hold on. Now, how does it originate in Kemet?
I'm just saying that the laws,
Uh-huh.
the Ten Commandments is a set of laws, and those set of laws are similar to the same set of laws that the Israelites would have learned while they lived in Kemet.
What are the set of laws they had in Kemet?
Well, we have the 42 negative confessions.
Okay, so real quick, what's your Exodus date?
Say that one more time.
What's your Exodus date again?
Exodus in the late 1500s BC, 1550, 50, somewhere in there.
Okay, so late 1500s. Here's how your Exodus date and what you just said don't line up, and they actually defeat each other, right? If we borrow from, let's say, the 42 laws of Ma'at, the 42 laws of Ma'at are found in the Papyrus of Ani, correct?
Correct.
The Papyrus of Ani is something that's a work of the 19th dynasty, which is 1292 BCE to 1189 BCE. So literally, the 42 laws of Ma'at are centuries after the Exodus. So how is it that we learned it in Egypt and then took it somewhere else and put a remix on it if Egypt didn't have it when you say we left it?
Well, again, you have to understand your premise is that it actually happened, right? My premise is that it may not have happened whatsoever. Now, you're going by my Exodus, but you're going by my Exodus date, and you're saying, okay, the 42 negative confessions were created in 12 BC, which was after they would have left out. So I'm not saying that they wrote it right then and then on the spot. I'm not saying that when they left, they took it with them. What I'm saying is that that culture is where they got it from, right?
Brother Tahuti, you mentioned a source you brought out earlier that substantiated the Exodus, and you mentioned that they named the character or individual Amos, and you mentioned that it had a similar name to Moses. So were you just using that for arguendo's sake or being objective, or do you take that source as to be a credible historical source?
That's what I'm saying. My source didn't say that. Okay, I just read Wikipedia and I was giving you my opinions on what I read. Now I'm saying that the name Amos is similar to the name Moses, right? That's my opinion. That's not what Wikipedia said.
I'm saying
it just gave us.
But the character you mentioned was Amos, and you brought the source out to substantiate that it was the Hyksos being in the Exodus and not the Israelites, quote unquote.
Well, I'm pretty sure the word Israelite is not even ancient, right? So the people wouldn't have been called Israelites.
Okay, let's subtract that. Let's subtract that.
Right.
Let's subtract that from the equation. But I just want to know the historical source that you pulled to prove that there was a guy named Amos and the Exodus did happen. Now, are you retracting that and saying that you shouldn't have pulled that, or Wikipedia is a faulty source? Or I'm asking because you went to a source that said the Exodus happened, then you gave a 1550 date on the Exodus, and then when you found out the 42 confessions were produced roughly 1290 circa BC, and when you've seen how it conflicted with your ideology, now you're kind of abandoning if the Exodus ever happened or not. So I want to know exactly why did you pull the historical source in the first place? No,
I don't work in that way. I don't work in trying to cover my own tracks because I'm incorrect. If I stand incorrect, I'm incorrect. That's just the way it is. My basic belief system is not Kemetic. I just became Kemetic recently and learned the lingo, learned the history, learned what's written recently. But my essence has always been Kemetic, so we're standing on truth. So I may have given you the wrong impression of what I was trying to explain. I wasn't explaining that the Exodus didn't happen. What I was explaining is that I wasn't saying that they took the information at that same point in time. That it comes from the culture, right? So that culture could have had that information handed down for a very long time. But my point at that particular time, what you're bringing up, I was saying is that they could have left out of Kemet and still took the negative confessions later on, right? I wasn't saying that the Exodus didn't happen in 1550.
You mentioned something, Gorilla, about the stories that are not global events. I believe you said something about.
We deal with Adam and Eve, the story of Noah, etc., and those things. Those are things that all peoples of the earth would have in common. So
Right.
my eyebrows wouldn't jump at seeing that, right? But other things,
Right.
of course, after that, that was something that would be exclusive to the Israelite people or the Hebrew people would be more, I believe, eyebrow raising and substantial.
I could definitely respect that concept. However, the last thing we were talking about was Moses. And we were talking about the Exodus. But my point that I was making, what I was trying to drive home, is that the story itself, the concept of the story, is still Kemetic. They could have picked it up at any point in time. Right. So that did need a little clarification, because I definitely see where you are coming from on that.
Also, what you're saying is that the Israelites aren't necessarily the Hyksos, but rather the Israelites picked up the story of the Hyksos and incorporated it into their history.
That's one way of looking at it. I'm not saying that the Hyksos has to be the Israelites or the proto-Israelites. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that the story itself is originating in Kemet, right? So if you see the story of an Exodus, it doesn't matter who wrote it or where you see yourself in the story. It's the same story. That's basically what I'm saying, right? For me to say I know for certain that the Hyksos are became the Israelites in the future, I would have to have substantial evidence for that, which I don't. Now I can say I believe that they are, but again, that's I don't have substantial evidence for that.
Brother Alazar, it seems to me like once you make the request that let's get off of global events,
right.
Now he's saying that kind of takes away from his argument. So where do we
no,
go?
I don't have a problem with that. I totally respect that point of view, because he's right about that. Right?
Okay, let's proceed then.
If he stands correct, then I'm not going to say okay, because even if I substantiate something, well, it's supposed to be there anyway. Right?
Okay, well, let's proceed then.
At least some of it, or the earlier parts of Genesis and whatnot are supposed to be a part of it. That's why, even in dealing with Mayat, right? We deal with Mayat. We understand we have 42 negative confessions, right? There are only 8 parallels between the 613 laws of Torah and the 42 laws of Mayat. There's 8 parallels, right? And they really only correspond to 5 verses biblically. So even if we take those 8 parallels, just like if we say, okay, well, maybe they got Adam and Eve in the evil snake and the flood, right? These are just very minor things. To say that we're dealing with
Correct.
the whole text is coming from there. If
Right.
we can only draw a couple similarities, I just don't feel like it's substantial. We're dealing with a book that is a compilation of 66 to 80 books, and things of that nature. So when people make the claim, I need like a lot of evidence to go with that. You know what I mean? To say, okay, this at the core of what it is in fact just something that was a remixed commission.
Right. And you know what?
Story.
And the thing is I'm not even making that claim. I'm making the claim that it was rewritten. I'm making the claim that this is something that a people learned in history, and probably deep in history. It could have been hundreds of years between since they left out of Kemet, right? And I'm not saying that these people who wrote the Bible had photogenic memories. So I'm not saying any of that, right? I'm just saying that it's inspired and it has all the pieces that they would have learned while they were in that land, right? That's what I'm saying. So we're in agreement that it's not going to be a mirror spitting image. And you're saying that that's what you would need in order to say, okay, well, this is its origins.
Yeah,
right. So
I wouldn't even say a mere spinning image. I wouldn't need a mere spinning image. Just I would need more. You know what I mean? I would need more than what I'm familiar with and what's been presented so far.
Right. Okay. And the thing is what convinces some people convinces others, and some people need more. No one can really tell you what's going to convince you. At what level of the information is going to be enough for everyone. They have their own threshold, right? For me, just seeing all the similarities back to back to back, even though they're not 100% identical, just seeing them back to back to back to back to back to back time and again, it's a reoccurring theme, right? So I'm only making the premise that my premise is that the theme is reoccurring. I'm not saying that every single individual item is exact or is enough to say that's where it comes from, because I don't believe one piece of it is enough to say, like the apple. I'm not going to say the fruit of knowledge and someone else having the fruit of knowledge, that's enough for me to say that it comes from that. But when you compile all these pieces and it's reoccurring, at that point, I'm saying, okay, that's enough to convince me.
Well, in the messages that I got, brother, you meant it seems to me like you made to my brother and to me that you literally verbatim that the stories from the Bible were stolen from Kemet.
I'm saying that it originates in Kemet. I don't think that Kemetic people wrote it and wrote the Bible and it came from the Kemetic people. What I'm saying is that the concepts originate in Kemet, right? I'm not saying that Abraham did one thing with one wife or did one thing with one son, and that's going to be mirrored in Kemet. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying is that, go ahead.
Go ahead, finish your thought, my bad.
I'm on the argument that it originates, right? So it was rewritten.
Okay, so do you speak Medu?
I don't.
Have you been to Kemet?
I have not.
So how do you substantiate all your claims? Through what mechanism, what source?
You're asking me what I learned the information from?
Yeah.
Well, I learned it by reading books. Got some in the Hosea. We got some information here in the Coming Forth by Day and by Night. We got Kemetic teachers, and I researched what they have to offer.
Okay. So are we done as far as like stories go? I mean, or what are we doing?
No,
here?
I mean there's many more. We can move past the Garden of Eden and go further down.
Okay, that's fine. You got the floor. Let's get into
Okay. So the next one would be Solomon. Now here's the thing. I truly believe Solomon existed. Right. I'm not the one to say Solomon didn't exist, David didn't exist. Right. I will say I believe that they were people walking on this earth. Right. Or at least the story is based on someone that walked on this earth. In the story of Solomon that I want to point out, we have a king, and he gets blessed with discernment. He gets blessed with basically wisdom to rule his land. And there's a story where he shows his wisdom by trying to determine whose baby, who was the mother of the baby, of the child. There was two women, both of them claimed the child. He used wisdom to figure out who the rightful mother was. You also see the Queen of Sheba coming into the story for a very brief period. She wanted to lean on his wisdom. She asked him some intense questions. She brought him some gifts. They exchanged gifts, and she left out of there, right? Later on, the story says that Solomon, he had 700 concubines, 700 wives, 300 concubines. He had 1,000 women, right? And he just started running them up with him. He lost his way. Now, this is somebody that was blessed with wisdom or discernment. He's blessed with discernment. He knows the difference between right and wrong. That's basically what discernment is to being able to see and identify. However, according to the story, the wisest king by the God of the Bible turned against God after receiving the own gift, the gifts from God, right, of discernment. And he starts to follow after his wives. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't do the same thing, in that situation. He got 1,000 wives, you're gonna mess up someplace, right? And they're not from the same background and culture. You're gonna mess up someplace, right? So I totally understand that.
Where can we find this story at in Kemet?
We have information out that shows that the Queen of Sheba and Solomon had a son, right? And this information is putting the Solomonic dynasties in the motherland of Kemet, the land that produced Kemet, right? The land that created the Medu Neter. All the laws of nature comes from what you guys would call Cush or Nubia. So what I'm saying is that in the narrative itself, King Solomon followed after his wives. Then we have information saying that Solomon and Makeda, or the Queen of Sheba, were involved, right? So this is one of the people that we will be referring to when we're saying he's following after their belief system. And we also know that he was also one of the writers. He's given credit for writing like Ecclesiastes and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, some of Psalms, right? So what I'm doing is I'm making a connection to Kemet on a historical basis and a connection to King Solomon, saying that he was a person who actually existed, right? And when you look at what Solomon is given credit of writing, we understand that one of those books were almost completely, not completely, but partially plagiarized from Kemet. In the Kemetic writings, we have a book called The Instructions of Amenemo. Now, the Instructions of Amenemo and certain sayings in Proverbs are almost identical.
Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's something you would certainly have to show and prove, and you would have to show and prove it.
Right.
Most importantly with the Medu Neter. And the reason why you would have to show and prove it most importantly with the Medu Neter is because we know, like with things like the what do they call that? What's that joint in Mesopotamia? We know that it's documented that the translators of the Enuma Elish did it on purpose to make it sound like the Bible because they couldn't translate, right? So that I need to see
right.
I need to see the original language, whatever is written in, be it, the more complex Medu Neter or the shorthand Medu Neter.
Okay, if you were to see that, then what's the next step?
Well, because I would need to verify that it is in fact saying this thing, because like I said, we know the translators have gone out of their way to make things sound like the Bible. It's what they've done.
Right.
So that's why I would need a little bit more verification than just an English translation. The same way I would go into the Hebrew for any particular scripture in Proverbs.
So we're saying something a little different than what we've been asserting before. before you had a particular stance, right? You had a stance because you had enough information on it. So you were able to take a particular stance. And at this point, you're saying that you would need a little more information. And I totally respect that. But what my question to you is, if you were to receive that information and it was substantiated, then what?
Well, I mean, it would just depend. It would depend on, you know, how many times it's occurred, you know, and things of that nature. Because we can't, for example, in Mayat, you're told not to kill and not to steal and not commit adultery. We're told to do the same things in the Torah, right? Are we to believe that one person, one group of people came up with the idea that you don't kill people where you live and steal and have sex with, you know, your neighbor's wife? No, these are not topics. These are not concepts that anybody can say they monopolize. This is common sense that you would get from, you know, wanting to develop a peaceful society. So things like that, I can't say anyone took from anyone because they're common sense, right? So if there's a wise word that's pretty common and we can find it in different cultures, then it would, I mean, we could chalk that up to coincidence. But if we see very specific things or like, let's say a whole chapter, let's say a Proverbs 6, we see that, oh, the same thing in Kemet, they already had it. That would change things drastically. Let's say a Proverbs 6, we see that, oh, the same thing in Kemet, they already had it. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically.
And then you study these two books and compare.
We're not saying that, and we're just saying pretty general wise quotes. I mean, that wouldn't raise an eyebrow to me.
You got the floor. I'm asking you your worldview on creation. My bad.
Oh, my bad. I was listening. No, I'm with the brother. And I came to what he's basically talking about through meditation. Because at some point, you have to get rid of all the physicality of things and everything that you've learned by other people's calculations and other people's interpretation of nature and reality. And you have to extrapolate what you've learned and what you've seen with your own senses, right? And you have to bring that into your core and to use that as a gauge, right? And then start to toil and manipulate and try to fashion it into something that is real, right?
Is that what Kemet reflects? Does Kemet reflect? I know the brother, he may not subscribe to Kemet, but does Kemet reflect what you guys are agreeing is the genesis of creation?
Okay, so first off, I would like to say that my core foundation is truth, right? The reason why I'm Kemetic is because the Kemetic core foundation is Ma'at, which is, again, truth. So our foundations align. And to answer the question, there are ways of looking at Kemetic literature and seeing the Big Bang, seeing consciousness, creating everything. So yes, Kemet does reflect that. And that's just icing on the cake for me. You have to understand, that's just icing on the cake. Yeah. For me, I got there through self-reflection, right? And understanding that I'm not gonna wake up dead. I actually thought that thought through my head, and I actually reflected on how can someone, where were you at before your physical self was here? What was your consciousness at? Just dwelling on those type of concepts makes you think that you're not just this physical being. You have an arm, you have a head, you have eyes, but that's not who you are. You can lose these different pieces and you'll still be you, right? So these type of things is what I meditated on. And I came up with with a thought. It's basically this idea that when you dream, I'm not the spooky type. Sorry if you think it's gonna get spooky.
Yeah,
I'm not.
It already got spooky, but you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. Well, I'm gonna continue on then. So I came up with this concept where if you're dreaming that you're a bird, okay, and you're born out of the egg, you know, you learn to fly, you basically live your whole life as this bird. Now, in your dream, that's who you are. You're that bird, right? Now, like you said, Issa, you're talking about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and they've already proven that there is no substance to matter. There's no physicality to solid things, right? It's all energy, right?
Yeah.
So energy equals matter at a certain point. That's their conclusion, right? I'm not going to say that conclusion is 100%, but I'm saying that I reached that same conclusion without their assistance, right? Through meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also saying that you can find these concepts in Kemetic writing, right? So they kind of align, right? So I can get into how they align, but the concept about being a bird is that when you're this bird, you don't know anything but being that bird, right? And then the moment that you die as that bird, you wake up out of the dream and you realize that you were dreaming. Now the question is, was that bird ever you? Right? Now the answer is that bird was never you, right? Now the deeper question is, were you ever that bird? Understanding the way quantum is, you understand that the energy that makes that dream, that same energy, that makeup, is the same energy that makes up solid substance, right? It's aligned. We're talking about this conscious energy. That's what makes up solid things.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
let me real quick. Let me just
So,
interject.
Wait, I'm just finish that really quick before you interject. So
Okay.
the end of it is this. When we wake up from our humanity, we realize that this universe that's built from the same energy as our dreams was nothing more than another more elaborate dream. Dreams, right? So you wake up from that, and when you wake up from that, you realize your divinity. You're
the dreamer.
Right, exactly. You were the dreamer, and everything in reality is a fixed portion of that dream, right? If you were that bird, you flew into a tree, you gonna hit that tree, right?
Right.
That's the way this dream operates.
Exactly. Your
So
dream head's gonna hurt when you hit a dream wall.
Right.
Let's do it. Let's do a brief intermission. This is kind of what I was hearing from the brother.
Oh.
If you hit a man in time, his wounds will heal. And if you steal from a man, you can replace what you steal.
What you have stolen.
Cross in the green.
Never in between.
Muhammad Ali looks like a butterfly and stings like a bee. Just thinking about spending another minute with Farrakhan. You never want to have time to join again. Boy, am I happy to see you, man. And always remember, my brother, one fish, two fish, red fish,
Bluefish, knick-knack, paddywhack, get dog and bone.
But yeah, man. I couldn't really follow the.
I mean, essentially, all is one and one is all is what you guys are saying.
Yes.
Now, let me get into how the Kemetic aspect of that, because my background is quantum physics as well. And I studied quantum physics because I thought it was the closest that I can get to the truth. I studied that prior to studying Kemet and found out that they align, right? So what I was really searching for was Kemet, but I wasn't exposed to Kemet. I was exposed to quantum, right? And all they're doing is bringing back old information, bringing it back to the surface. That's all it really is.
Thousands of years ago.
Right. They're talking about affirmations, the power of words. Wait a minute. We were doing this thousands of years ago. Right.
Okay. Can I
Go for it.
can I ask you what's the significance with spell Geb and spell 700?
What does that spell?
Tag Gorilla Hebrew.
Go for it.
In the coffin text, spell 700. I'm sure you have the coffin text, right? A copy.
Right.
Faulkner. If you go to Faulkner's translation, if you could just read spell 700 for us, because I want to because I understand that Geb is what does the deity Geb represent?
Well, I'm sure you know the answer to that. Well, I don't understand the question. I mean, I know you're aware of what Geb is.
Geb is the universe. Some people say Geb is the earth. You see what I'm saying?
No, Geb is not the universe. That's Newt.
Newt, right? So Geb is the earth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so essentially, I've been asking brothers to cause me to understand the esoteric information that's in this spell, and we just haven't happened yet. So I was wondering if you can, since you're a student in the the Kemetic culture.
Okay, this is what I'll say. What I'll say is this. When I read a lot of the Kemetic text, there was a lot of extrapolation you got to do to try to get in their mindset, in their mind frame. These people were very creative. They actually personified laws of nature. They actually personified energy. They personified emotions. These are very creative people, right? I'm not going to say that the Kemetic knowledge and information is the end all be all, right? One of the main reasons why I'm Kemetic is because it shows and proves basically the information in the Bible, which is the reason why we're having this conversation, right? I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as that particular spell, right? Spell 70. I can look into it, but if you want to elaborate on it, and if I don't come up with a divine answer for you, you have to understand that the Kemites were very, very creative people. And the information evolved over thousands and thousands of years, right? The U.S., America, has been here for 400 years. The Kemetic legacy remained untouched for 3,000 years. So there was a lot of changes being made, right? And there was a lot of layers on top of layers. Some things in Kemet, if you're talking about Asar, if you're talking about Haru, some things are going to be in reference to a physical person, while at other times it's going to be in reference to an energetic force or an emotion, right? So it's very complex. Okay. So I understand if you read something and you didn't understand it.
Well, maybe we should just read it real quick for the viewer's sake. Let's see. Can we pull it up here?
Go for it. If we're trying to undermine the position of Geb being a physical earth by a passage that's mentioned in Geb, you want to look at, all the context that has Geb in it, right?
Well, this context is dealing with, let me share my screen real quick.
You're talking about when he's, no, I don't know what you're talking about, actually.
You know what we're talking about, brother Tehuti. Okay, here we go. Let's read this. This is an academia.edu. It says, likewise, in spell 700, in a passage talking of Geb, the deceased again uses sodomy as a symbol of power, his phallus in between the buttocks of his son and his heir. So how do we understand, the allegory or metaphor of someone sodomizing their own son?
I'm busy. I'm doing a show.
So you're saying, what are you saying in reference to that text?
I'm asking you, it seems to me like, it's apparent and evident that Geb is giving his son root chakras and activating his
That's not what it means.
Uncoiling that snake.
Stop it.
That's not what it means, bro.
Let me read it. Okay, so it says,
In fact, real quick, the whole chakra thing is the opposite of anything physical. It's literally the opposite. But I'm just letting you know that.
okay. So we have in the coffin text, spell 700, Geb sodomizing his son. My brother Tehuti, how do you reconcile this? What is the meaning? What is the mythos in all of this?
No, I don't know. I mean, that sounds like it's left field, right? But we have to understand that their culture was completely different from our culture. I'm not trying to justify sodomy. I know they translated into the word sodomy, right? So that word is in there. And they didn't change the word to something else. They're saying the word is sodomy. Right? So I don't even know how that word would even have gotten in there. But again, I don't have any answers for you as far as that spell. I don't know who Geb's son is. I know Geb's the earth.
Geb's sons are Osiris, Horus, Anubis. No, my bad. Osiris, Set, and Nephthys. Those are Set, Nephthys, and Horus the elder, as well as Osiris, are all the sons of Geb.
Okay, and which story? And what is this? Is this men fight story? What story are we talking about?
According to the coffin text, it's just dealing with.
So you're saying that that's the coffin text is saying that Osiris is the son of Set. I mean, not Set, but
well, no,
yeah.
I'm not sure which son is being referred to. That's why I just named all of his sons that are reckoned as his sons in the pantheon.
Right. I don't know. I'll look it up. Let's do that.
Yeah, that was just a question that I wanted to know when you deal with plagiarization, right? When you deal with plagiarization, there's a few things. There's a few things in the coffin text, Book of the Dead, pyramid text, and so on, that I would have to question. Why didn't we steal these stories? And instead, a lot of my beloved Kemetic brothers, they point to global events, like the brother Gorilla Hebrew was saying. We don't have a problem with global events because everybody experienced them and took them into history. So when we look at more detailed stories like this, we definitely have to ask ourselves a question, and it would make a better case if we could show detailed stories like this being plagiarized by what we call as our Hebrew manuscripts.
Right. Oh no, I've never made that point. I never said that anything was stolen in detail, unless you're talking about Proverbs. That was almost verbatim in different locations, in multiple locations throughout the book. Other than Proverbs, I wouldn't say that the story was taken in detail. I came on here originally saying that it originates, right? It was rewritten, and it was. Here's the thing: one of the biggest that was taken out not as in, not a general concept when I'm saying divinity. I'm talking about godship, right? I'm talking about
Who's the main god of Who's the main god of Egypt?
Egypt.
Yeah,
You
the
mean
highest,
Kemet?
the highest god.
We don't have a name for God. We have a position for God. The position we say is Amen Ra. Amen means hidden, Ra means creator. So it's the hidden creator, the one behind everything.
And does he or she have an ontological? Are they rather an ontological being?
There is the energy that's behind. Yes, the energy behind all things.
Okay.
So it's the energy behind the words that you speak. That's Amen Ra, right?
Okay, so it's an invisible force that has an effect on material matter.
I wouldn't say that. No, I would say that it's all things and beyond.
So whose judgment? What does the gods of Egypt fight for Egypt, or are they the gods of all the people on the planet?
There is no gods of Egypt.
Okay.
I don't understand your question.
So the gods of Egypt are not the gods that that who you guys say is God is not who the Chinese people say is God.
No, it is.
Okay, according to who?
According to God. I mean, there's only one energy, one God. Now, like you could put different names on different aspects of this one energy, but it's still that one energy.
Okay, so is it masculine or feminine?
Both.
So it's an androgynous.
Correct. But it's not a man. It's light. It's consciousness. Light. Yeah, it's not a human being. It's not like physical. It's beyond, so way beyond.
That's light that's above your head. Do you call it Father?
Do I call this light above my head Father?
Yeah.
What difference does it make? Why?
Because the Bible that you believe in calls God Father.
The reason why the reason why Christ called God Father was because of you're putting something into something. So that's a fatherly aspect. But in reality, they call it Elohim, and Elohim is actually masculine and feminine, but they erased it and put God. You know what I'm saying? But the father aspect of God is you're putting something forward, and then creation is the reception of this putting forward. So that's a masculine aspect, but it has nothing to do with a gender of a physical. Nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Okay. See, and this is why we like to say sola scriptura, meaning we're going to stand on the scriptures alone, because if you don't and you're mixing these fig leaves together, you're going to do like you did, Issa. You're going to add some parts from the Bible, some parts from Kemet, some parts from Phil Valentine, some part from Buddha, some part from
all the same.
And
it's all the same.
But the Bible don't
say the same.
The Bible don't say it's the same.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
The Bible refers.
Hold on, real quick, because again, I can't let you lie, brother. You just said Elohim is a neuter noun. No, God is a neuter noun. Elohim is not. So you actually had a better argument if you use God, but you said they erased Elohim for God. God is a neuter noun. Elohim is not. As we can see, this is Elohim, Elohim, or Elohim, masculine noun. Masculine. It refers to a masculine force, masculine deity. So what it's talking about. Just so you understand, brother.
Elohim has both masculine and feminine in the actual name, though.
Where's the feminine in Elohim? Do you know what one or two characters is necessary for a Hebraic word to be feminine?
No, I don't. But I know that I studied this before, and I know for a fact that
if you don't know, how you gonna tell me, right?
No, I'll put it like this. When I studied this, I found out where Elohim was masculine and feminine, but I don't have the information present in front of me right now.
Okay, I understand you don't have the information, but since you've asserted it, allow me to demonstrate to the audience that that's not true. As we can see here, this is Elohim. One, it's plural, right? It's plural. How do you make it plural? You add Hayim. That makes it plural. The word by itself is Allah, right? These two things. In order to make something Feminine, you have to put a have at the end, the ha or the have character. That's what you put at the end, or the thet or the tha character. You put that at the end, and that renders, and that will make the word feminine. Any other time you're dealing with something that's either masculine, proper locative, or a verb, you're not dealing with a feminine word. So anytime it's feminine, it's always going to end with either what is transliterated as an H or a TH, always, just so you know.
Is it okay to worship? Is it okay to worship Buddha, Brother Issa?
Buddha never wanted to be worshipped.
Is it okay to worship him though? Is it okay to worship any and all gods? Yeah, is it okay to worship any and all gods? Okay.
Well, if he believes in the East Indian ideology, yogi and all this stuff, of course, because he believes that each God is the same God, just a different manifestation of the one God. All is one, one is all, like he already agrees with, of course.
Polytheism. Okay, well,
no, not polytheism. Pantheism. Pantheism, meaning all.
Okay. So anyway, my brother Tahuti, you know about natural Tahuti?
No, I don't. Who's that?
Free the brother natural Tahuti, man.
Yeah, free the brother natural Tahuti. He was a pillar in the Kemetic community. You should look the brother up. He was doing some big things. But yeah, it was a good build. It was a good dialogue. What I will agree with you, Brother Tehuti, is that Kemet in the Christianity has a lot of parallels, and Christianity stole a lot of stories from Kemet, but not the Bible. One thing we have to understand is that Christianity is not Bible based. They're inserting, they're assuming, it's conjecture, everything, you name it. There's nothing about a virgin birth, December 25th. Adam and Eve were the only two people. There was an apple. The tree was literal. So any parallels you feel like you see is from Christianity, not what we call the actual Bible. So what we can do is you could.
Well, let me respond.
Go ahead.
All right. So we left off in our the purpose of the debate. We left that off a while back, where brother Gorilla Hebrew was stating that he didn't have a stance on it. He needs more information, and then we kind of interjected someone else into the conversation. We're not even at the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even gotten into the information. I said we can move forward. He said there was a lot that we can throw out. I agreed. I said, hey, we can move forward. We can go to the next topic, right? So now, from your standpoint, you don't realize that there's some things that are word for word from Kemet in the Bible, right? You don't realize that. You don't realize that the story of Solomon, which we were about to touch on, and supposedly he gets credit for writing parts of your book. He turned away from the gods of the Bible.
And the brother asked you for proof. Do you have that proof? Yes or no?
Well, I was going to pull up the information, but he asked for pictures in Kemet, on the walls in Kemet, right? So that's kind of really specific for the actual meta-netter, which I don't read and say this is what it says. But I can easily bring up the translation.
I need this, like, at least the source. Can I at least get the source? What papyrus, what wall, etc. Where is it at?
I don't know which what the source is actually. Right. So here's the thing.
If you don't know what the source is, I can tell you just reading something. So I need to at least know the source, the primary document, so I can look at it as well. Other than that, I'll just say somebody done made something up. Because if there ain't no source, then it's made up.
Right. So you know what I do? I deal in truth. So I totally understand what you're saying. And it does matter. What you're saying does definitely matter. You want to have the evidence up front, which I can't say I can produce right now. But that doesn't mean that it's false. We're not falsifying it. We're just ignoring it. That's basically what we're doing at this point, because we don't know. So we need to not investigate it, because an investigation at this point is not going to suffice. So we need to ignore it at this point instead of looking at the validity of it.
No, well,
right?
Well, I would need to know how we substantiate the validity of it. Is we make an investigation. I'm all for investigating any source, but I would need the name of the original document, so
that's
I
what
can
we'll
make
do.
an investigation, not just read what somebody alleges is a translation of an ancient document. What is the document, so we can get a look at it?
So I can't bring that up, right? So now we want to throw it out. But let's do this. Let's investigate. Let's find out where it is, because it's obviously written, right? It's obviously Kemetic. The source that it comes in is a book called The Instructions of a Minimal, right? Now I can't pull up the actual writings on the wall, but in the Instructions of a Minimal, we can compare it to what the Bible says. Now that is something that we could do, right? But I understand if the need to throw it out, because if I was in your shoes, I might want to do the same thing, right? But I deal in truth. I deal in knowledge. Now I don't have the particular thing that you're asking for, right? And that's in all actuality, I have that in most things. I don't have the 42 negative confessions on the walls, right?
Yeah, so
I have that.
Brother Tehuti, what this all boils down to is this. You don't have readily available sources or access to what you're talking about. So that's not scholarship, my brother. Scholarship is you having your sources and you having access at least to the PDFs, the breakdowns where there's the parallel from the original to the translation.
Right.
That's what he's asking. He's saying you can do like Phil Valentine just did up here and say there's light is 186,000 miles per hour. Well, how do you know? Well, I don't know. The white man told me so. So we can't just throw away something that we believe is our dying faith because you're saying something that you can't prove.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying. One, I hear your point, but again, I deal in truth. I want to know if it's truth or not. Just the honesty about it. It's not based on me as an individual. Now, as far as pulling them up from the Instructions of a Minimal and comparing it to Proverbs, now we can do that, right? I didn't say we couldn't do that. What I was saying is that he was asking for original source, and I don't have that. And the thing is we can grab that original source in the future, because you got me at between a rock and a hard place. If I don't have it, I can't produce it, but I can read from both texts. How about that?
Well, but if it's not original, then again, like it's the same thing. Like me, I found a book. Oh, look at this book. It's the Kemet copy from the ancient gorilla people that predate them by 10,000 years. And look, it's right here. Anybody can write something in a book. That's why the primary is so important. Like just like a court case. In a court case, when evidence is entered into a court case for each party to make their argument, we have to call into question the chain of evidence. So that's why we're calling into question the chain of evidence here to say, well, we can't omit that. We can't even allow the jury to hear that because there's an improper chain of evidence here. You see what I'm saying? So if this ain't a primary and this is just in some book without a source cited, we can't deal with that. That's intellectual irresponsibility, and that's not true. And this is just in some book. And this is just in some book without a source cited. We can't deal with that. That's intellectual irresponsibility, and that's not true.
So the Bible is not a primary source.
The Bible is the primary source, but what you're reading, the book you're reading out of, is not the primary source for what you allege comes from ancient Kemet, or what the book alleges comes from ancient Kemet.
All right. So basically, you want me to bring out this stone, lay it on my lap.
No. At least reference it where it comes from. It could be on a wall. It
certainly comes from the instructions of a minimal.
What is that?
The instructions of a minimal. It's a book that was written in ancient times.
Okay, so how do I spell that? Let me look this book up. How do I spell
that?
What's it called? Let's
okay. Amenemope. That's how you spell it.
Sound about right.
Okay. I think he's pulling it up right now. So, did you want to read what for the audience who I know we were
yeah. So you can read. What you can do is you can read it, and I need you to cite the section it comes out of, because this book has been published into a book as we know it today, but it is multiple different things here that have been combined.
You guys already want to take stabs at it.
You
already want to take stabs at it before it even is presented.
Well, that's what a lawyer does.
You want to throw it out of court. You want to throw it out of court before it even comes up.
Yeah, brother. That's what good lawyers do. That's what scholars do, brother.
Right. Throw that stuff out.
That's right.
All right.
So yeah, I just need you to quote where it comes from, which part of the book, etc.
All right. So Amenemope 1:6, it says, "Incline thy ear to hear my sayings, and apply thy heart to their comprehension, for it is a profitable thing to put them in thine heart." Now, the comparable verse for Proverbs is Proverbs 22:17-18. "Bow thy ear and hear thy words of the wise, and apply thine heart unto the knowledge, for it is pleasant things for thou to keep with thee."
Let's say Proverbs 6, we see that the same thing in Kemet. They already had it. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically.
And then you study these two books and compare.
So hold on. So here we have two verses that say, "Listen to what I'm getting ready to tell you, because it'll be good for you."
Okay, you said, "Incline thy ear to hear my sayings."
Yeah. Listen to what I'm going to tell you, because it'll be good for you. Okay.
Listen to the way it's written. It's written.
Wait, I didn't catch. Salakia, my brother. My apologies, but can you requote that Proverbs 20:22?
By thy ear.
No, can you? What's the actual location of it? Proverbs
22:17-18.
17. Okay. Okay, you got it.
All right.
So, when, like the brother said, when you take something like, listen to me because, I'm a man of knowledge, it'll be helpful for you. So you take that as direct and verbatim plagiarism, the Bible stealing from Kemet, just off of this old wise saying, as we say.
Right. I hear what you're trying to say. I definitely hear it. So let's see. It says, "Incline thy ear to my sayings, bow down thy ear and hear the words of the wise." Okay. Thy heart to their comprehension. I see what you're saying. So let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Because this continues, my brother. It continues and continues and continues. "Remove not the landmark and the boundaries of the field, and trespass not on the boundary of the widow." Okay, so that's a minimum 7:12-15, and that's comparable to Proverbs 23:10. "Remove not the old landmark, and enter not into the fields of the fatherless." Right? Let me continue, because I know unless it's just screaming out to you, you're going to deny it.
So don't steal people's land.
But it didn't say that, did it? That's not how it was said. It wasn't said anywhere near to what you said. It sounds
but
like a
that's
mirror image.
what it means.
Okay, so the meanings, a lot of meanings are the same, but we're not talking about the meaning. We're talking about the actual words, right?
Well,
so let's move forward.
Of course, the actual phraseology is going to be the same when people are using the same type of contemporary English during that time. The same way now we're going to say, "Don't steal somebody's land." So I mean,
Okay, cool.
that's not.
So
that's
let's keep reading. So they have made themselves wings like geese, and they have flown to heaven. Riches certainly makes themselves wings. They fly away an eagle towards heaven. Okay, so that's just common.
Hold on. Read the instructions again.
Okay, they have made themselves wings like geese.
Who
and they have flown.
Conceptually, who made themselves a wing like a geese?
I don't know.
See, this is riches make themselves wings and fly off to heaven, right? This is we don't know making the wings like geese. So the context here is different. We're just seeing somebody flying to heaven.
Okay, so that's number 3. Let's move forward. Better is proven the hand of God than the riches of the storehouse. Better are loaves when their heart is joyous. And that's comparable to better is with fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble within. Better is the dinner of the herb where love is.
Make sure you are quoting the verses too, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. That was Proverbs 15, 16 through 17. We've got fraternize with, all right, this is a minimum 11, 13 through 14. Fraternize not with a hot-tempered man, and press not on him of conversations. Comparable to Proverbs 22, 24. Make not friendship with the angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go.
So don't be friends with angry guys.
So basically what I'm saying is that no matter how close these get, you can justify it. It can say 4 or 5 words verbatim. It can use the same metaphors and have the same meaning behind it on top of using the same metaphors. And some of the words could be in the same exact placement, but that's not close enough, right? It's never close enough. Right?
I mean, you just went into like, don't steal people's land, don't hang around guys with short tempers. I mean, so even the things that are parallel, I mean, this is not like, that's not like super deep knowledge, bro. You know what I mean? Like this is common stuff.
I didn't claim that.
You know, so and then
that wasn't claimed.
And then you're reading 2 translations. You're reading translations on top of that. So you're putting more credence to the fact that they're translated similar over. That's why I simplified the things. Okay, they're certainly saying the same things here. Don't steal people's land. Don't steal people's land. Don't hang around people with short tempers. Don't hang around people with short tempers. Great. Right. So we have a couple instances of that, certainly, just like it says don't kill people in Egypt, and say don't kill people in the Torah. But these are not concepts that one or the other have a monopoly upon. These are sound common sense.
So you want to go to that argument. It doesn't even sound the same. It just means the same thing. They don't sound. They're not even using.
Sound exactly the same. It can sound exactly the same. Here's the issue, brother. We have 80 books in the Bible. There's even more in Egypt. There should be a lot more parallels that are being drawn than what you have provided for us tonight in order for you to come to the conclusion that you are. Because
no, there are more.
You can't make the argument to me that this is not common sense. Are these things not common sense? Don't hang around these people. Don't steal land from people. Don't kill people. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's common.
I'm not making that argument. What I'm saying is, if one says 12 not to be rich, and the other one says 12 not after riches, right? So let's read Proverbs 23, 4 through 5. Toil not to be rich, and cease from dishonest gain. For wealth maketh to itself wings, like a eagle that flies to heavenward. So we compare that to a minimum, and no matter how close this is, I can probably read the same thing and say I'm reading the minimum, and you still say, well, I can
Brother
say
Tehuti,
But also, Brother Tahuti, you have to understand the divisive nature of what you're doing. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I just want to make that clear, because like one version says toil not to be rich. One, that's the English Standard Version, right? No
Okay.
other version talks about toiling at all, right? So you're using specific versions that even sound more like it in order to further your point, which is why I asked for, do people read the actual ancient language? Because I can say I read Hebrew, and I can go into the Hebrew and I could demonstrate that I can read it, and I could demonstrate what these words mean. I could show each and every one of these things isolated in phrase, in full context, etc. Right? To substantiate what I'm saying.
Right.
You can't do the same thing. You're literally relying entirely upon how someone decided to translate that. Right? Now, here's what's interesting. It says toil not in the English Standard Version. Do you know when the English Standard Version was printed, when it originated from?
No, and so your point is verbiage in the older version.
Hold on. This is important. In 2001, the version that you're reading when it says toil is a version that is not 20 years old, right? No version that predates it ever says it the way that it says it, that makes it even more similar, which is one of your main points of argument.
Okay, well,
that's why that has to be dismissed even in and of itself.
Okay, that's fine. Why don't you read it from the version that you want to read it from, and let's see if it's not similar.
I'm not saying it's not similar. I'm excusing the argument of the exact wording.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is
I'm not saying that it's not. Everything is exact either. Neither one of us is making that argument. So I don't know what you're saying.
One of your points, one of your arguments is if it has 4 or 5 or almost all the same words, we're just going to dismiss it. Did you not say that?
I did say that, but
okay,
that's not the main point.
What I just
overall.
I'm not attacking whether or not the same concept is being talked about or overall the same thing, which is why I began to simplify the things as to, okay, don't steal land, don't hang out with quick-tempered people. I'm simplifying it because I'm acknowledging that a similar concept, the same concept even, is being said in both instances. I won't deny, there's not even a point in denying it, because I don't think that that's anything outside of common sense. So my eyebrows aren't raised by that. Let's say Proverbs 6, we see that over the same thing in Kemet. They already had it. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically. That would change things drastically.
And then you study these two books and compare.
Okay, let me interject here. I am going to come out and say, those writings that you're reading from, they stole them from King Solomon's Proverbs. Now, prove me wrong.
They stole them from King Solomon's Proverbs?
Yes. I'm saying the writings that you're reading that are saying are similar, they were copied and plagiarized from the Proverbs of King Solomon. Prove me wrong. You got the floor.
You mean that as like King Solomon is older than the instructions of a minimum?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Oh, okay, so we just date the instructions of a minimum and date King Solomon.
Okay, well, it depends on which line you're reading, because what lines are you reading from? This is important because the instructions of a minimum, as I'm looking at here, are dated anywhere from 1069 BCE to 500 BCE, right? But each line is different. So what lines are you reading from?
Well, here's the thing. This is what I'm getting from you guys, right? I'm getting, if it's line by line.
No.
It's just
Tahuti. I have to.
I'm just saying.
We have to remain on a linear logic here. I'm telling you that the book you're reading was stolen writings from King Solomon's Proverbs. Prove me wrong.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and see when King Solomon lived.
Okay.
And
Hold on,
then
hold on.
anything
No, no.
prior to that.
Okay, but
Anything
I need
prior
the-
to
I
that,
need the
he could.
lines. Can you cite to me the lines that you read? I like those so I can take a look because I have all the actual textual witnesses for the lines and their timeline. So this is how we will properly scholastically cross-reference this.
All right, so we'll do Proverbs 23, 4 through
Because
5.
I'm here.
Okay. Oh no,
here-
I need. What are the lines in the instructions of a minimal?
Right. And then we're going to do, it's in, I'm just
seeing-
showing chapter 7.
But real quick, Brother Tahuti, I'm seeing the instructions are from the 20th dynasty.
Hold on, no. The instructions are not from the 20th dynasty. They're not. I'm looking at everything here.
Okay.
When we deal with they start in the 20th, but they go way further. But it depends on each line. So each line corresponds, or each group of lines correspond to a certain time period. So that's why I need to know exact time period.
Let's start with the
Break
one.
it down.
Let's start with the one you said from Proverbs 22 and 17.
No, let's do it now. Let's start at your first one and let's do all of them.
Yeah, that his first
What'd you
one.
bring,
was
about 5?
22 and 17.
You brought 5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Yeah, we'll do these 5.
Yeah, let me get all. Let's do all 6. Might as well. So which ones are them?
Yeah, let's go back to the first one you mentioned. The very.
All right, so it's a minimum of 1:6.
1:6.
Right.
What is 1:6? 16?
No. It's I think it'll be verse 1. It would basically be like verse 1.
2 verse 6.
No. All right. So let me read it off here. It says, "Incline thy ear to my sayings."
Hold on, I need the verse numbers though. We don't got to go over reading it all over again. I just need the verse. No, I need the lines that it is.
I'm just showing a minimum of 1 verse 6.
So it's in a minimum is in chapters.
This is how it's broken down here.
Do you have the actual book? Or are you reading out of a secondary source?
I'm reading out of a secondary source.
Therein lies the problem. I need the actual lines that it is, because the way it's broken down is in lines, not in book, chapter, verse. It's broken down in lines. See? So
All right.
this
So there's another point of contention. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Cut it out.
All right, sorry for keeping you guys waiting.
No, you good.
All right, so I was trying to produce the book. I was unable to do that. I don't have that book.
Yeah, we knew it, but we just wanted you to try anyway.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it's pretty late over here, so we're gonna have to, I'm gonna have you to, when we get off this live stream, go get your sources, make it suspenseful, and don't come back till something dope hits you.
Oh yeah, we have a lot. We had a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff, and you guys brought up some really good points. You know, and I always felt that I want to, of course, go to Kemet. I want to learn to read the Medunetter, right? I want to be able to do that stuff so I can actually get into better scholarship. I definitely understand that, but the most important thing that I want is the truth, right? If everything is pointing to the same information, then it doesn't take a rocket science to see where it came from.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that history is more important than future prophecy?
That's kind of, for me, that's kind of a loaded question. I don't know, when it comes to future prophecy, predicting the future, I got mixed feelings about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? I can reserve a percentage of believing that it's possible, right? But I don't know that that's possible. If you read off to me something it's said in the past and you say, oh, well, it came to pass, then I'm like, okay, cool, right? But I don't know if it's actually possible for undoubtedly, right? And then is it more important than the past? The past is something that has already happened. It gives us direction by knowing where we came from, right? If we know we were 2 feet behind, we know we're going forward, right? So it's different perspective. The future gives us something that the past doesn't, and the past gives us something that the future doesn't. So I couldn't say one is more important than the other, but they're definitely both needed.
True indeed. And we definitely see that in the scriptures. We see history, which I think you agreed that some of the things in the scriptures are actual history, but we also see something that's more important, which is prophecy. Any old nigga can write about how Michael Jordan hit for 60 against the Detroit Pistons 1996. Any nigga can write about the 9/11 Twin Towers, but it's when you're dealing with the high level of consciousness, which we believe is the Holy Spirit of the Most High Yahweh, and getting that impartation of future events sets this book and these ancient texts apart from any other ancient text. So I know you've been hit with the whole Hebrew Israelite thing, but it's my duty to let you know, brother. You say you're about truth. There's only one truth, and that truth is the scriptures, what we call more accurately the 1611, which is translated from the Hebrew and Greek scriptures. So we understand history is important,
right?
And we believe our history is our history is in the scriptures. Your black ass, excuse my language, your black ass going on to slavery is in these scriptures. So yes, this has a lot to do with us and our plight over here in the Americas. So what we'll do is this: we do this show every Wednesday. We could even do a surprise show, but like I said, next time just let me know you got your sources. Let's maybe pick some more precise and concise topics, and then Lord willing, we can do it again, my brother.
Right, we need to pick up where we left off because we'll never get to the end. Right, we'll never get to the end. Especially, and like you're saying, you're putting a lot of weight on those scriptures, and I'm telling you that they come from Kemet. So the weight that you're putting on it is coming from your forefathers. So hey,
you can show me in Kemet us going on slaves. You can show me in Kemet me and my ancestors going on slave ships to serve a 400-year captivity.
I don't think that's nowhere near in Kemet.
Okay, well, I could go in these ancient texts right here and show you that in here.
Right, and that's the thing is you got to put yourself as those people.
Well, I mean, we got to look at what actually happened to a particular people group.
Right, and then you got to make the parallel, unlike what you guys were saying when it comes to like the instructions of the minimum, right? In Proverbs, it's the exact opposite.
Well,
right.
Well, no,
I'm not saying that it's the similar, but it's the, it's just in general that story happened. Oh, okay. But you guys can do that when it comes to your story.
No, well, I can get specific. I mean, Alexander the Creep was prophesied 300 years before he came. Cyrus the Persian, Herodotus, the great historian, corroborates his existence. He was prophesied by some scriptures dated 150 to 200 years before he even came, and he was called by name. So we don't have to go to the parallels. We can deal with specs, what they call specifics. So again, if you're definitely willing to talk about prophecies,
I brought up specific. But you're not bringing any what do you call original sources, right? You didn't bring any original sources, and that's the issue. Because I brought up specifics. You're saying I didn't bring up specifics, but what it was I didn't bring up was sources. Those are two different words. Just same as you didn't bring up any original sources. I didn't bring up any original sources.
Well, the burden of proof was on you to prove that we stole from Kemet. So what do we need to bring up any sources for?
Well, we weren't making that point at that particular time. We were saying you were talking about prophecy.
Okay.
So
Oh yeah,
that's a little
our
different.
primary source are the
Right.
Hebrew scriptures. Our primary source is the Hebrew scriptures, which we have access to today. So that's what I would encourage you to do when you want to start going into and dealing with translations. Make sure you have access and understanding of the original manuscripts. And with that, I'm gonna give Call Halal Yahweh Bahashem Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Thank y'all for coming out. Tune in to the next Situation Room.